Chapter 9. The Choir in the Storm. Orren had heard beautiful things before. A woman laughing with bread in her mouth when she had thought herself too hungry to laugh. The low beam taking the first breath of a song together. Ivara saying his name in irritation, which was often the only safe clothing tenderness wore on her. Ice breaking in a pump after 3 hard strikes. A child learning a chorus wrong and singing it anyway because the wrongness belonged to him. He had heard beauty. This was not that. The note moved through the ship, like it had found the bones beneath the wood. Orren stood in the passenger room doorway, one hand on the frame, and forgot the ceiling above him. The ache at the back of his skull where he had struck it, the lamp rocking in its cradle, the cups on the floor, Ivara sitting upright on the cot, with a quilt half fallen from her lap. The note came again, low at first, then higher, though it did not seem to climb. It opened. That was the only word his mind had for it. Opened like a door under water. Opened like a mouth in sleep. Opened like grief when no one was watching, and therefore had no reason to arrange its face. "Orren," Ivara said. The sound of his name should have brought him back at once. It almost did. He looked at her. Her burned hand lay wrapped against her ribs. Soot still lived near the corner of her jaw. Her eyes were sharp with fear and anger and something that had no name yet. She had asked him not to go. No. She had said, "Don't go." That was different. A man shouted above them. Another sound followed. Not a shout. A body striking wood. Orren's own body, decided before sense finished arguing. "I'll come back," he said. The words were small and stupid in the room. Ivara's mouth tightened as if she had tasted them and found no salt. "Look where you put your feet," she said. He almost smiled. Then the note threaded down the passage again and pulled the smile from him before it could form. He climbed. The stairs fought him. The third one dipped under his boot, though Same had warned her, not him, and Orren cursed under his breath as his shoulder struck the wall. The ship lurched. He grabbed the rail with both hands. His palms slid on old damp and someone else's grease. Above, the rain had changed voice. Below-deck rain had been tapping, then drumming. On deck, it was an animal. It struck his face the moment he pushed through the hatch, cold enough to make his eyes close. Wind drove it sideways under his collar, into his mouth. He tasted salt before he saw the sea. The deck pitched beneath him. Not the gentle betrayal of leaving harbor. This was a flaw, trying to throw every man into the dark. Lines lashed in the wind. Sailcloth cracked overhead like bone-splitting. Men moved through rain and spray with their bodies bent low, hands wrapped in rope, boots slipping and finding purchase and slipping again. The sky had come down. No horizon, no stars, no clean line between cloud and water. Only a black, heaving world cut in brief white pieces whenever lightning tore it open. Then the song came again. Orren turned toward it. Every man on deck turned too. Not fully, not all at once. The work held them by habit for a breath longer. A sailor with a coil over one shoulder stopped with the rope sliding from his hands. Another man at the forward line let his mouth fall open, rain running over his teeth. Then, halfway up the rigging, pressed his cheek to the wet rope as if listening with his skin. The song did not come from the ship. It came from the cliffs, or past the cliffs, or beneath them. The black shapes rose to starboard, jagged and slick, appearing and vanishing behind sheets of rain. At their base, the sea burst white against stone. Caves opened there, some no more than mouths in the rock, others deep enough that darkness seemed to pour out of them against the storm. The note slipped from one cave to another. Not one voice, many. A low harmony gathered behind the first, then a second above it, thin and bright as a blade drawn slowly from a sheath. The voices did not fight the storm. They made the storm feel like accompaniment. Wind became breath. Rain became hand against drumskin. The groan of the ship found a place under the cord, and seemed, for one terrible moment, willing. Orren's throat opened. He had not meant to answer. The first sound in him rose without words, a bare thread of pitch reaching toward the place the voices had made. Someone seized his arm. Pain snapped him back. Saim stood beside him, broad body, braced against the hatch frame, rain streaming down his face. No. Orren stared at him. Saim's grip tightened. Whatever you think you hear, no. The voices bent, not louder. Nearer. Orren felt them touch the raw place where Evara's grief lived in him. Not a hand, not a knife. Something worse, because it knew the shape of both. It showed him, for the space of a note, a room, without loss. No, not showed. Suggested Evara asleep without pain. Evara's hands healed. Evara laughing with her mouth full of bread. Evara in warm light. Evara stepping toward him through no smoke, no rain, no father, no ship with an ill-omened name. His knees loosened. Saim shoved him back against the hatch. The world hit Orren again. Rain, wood, cold, Saim's fingers, the stink of tar. "Do you hear it?" Orren asked. Saim's face had gone hard with effort. "Everyone hears it." "What is it?" "Bad news with breath." The answer was not enough. Orren looked past him to the wheel. Ankistro stood there with Dovan, one hand on the rail beside the wheel, the other gloved and held close. His hat was gone. Rain plastered dark hair to his skull and ran through the scar near his brow. He did not look toward the cliffs now. He looked at his crew, counting, Orren thought. The captain was counting which of his men were still inside their bodies. Eyes down, Ankistro shouted. A few obeyed. One did not. Leo, the young deckhand Orren had seen earlier carrying rope, stood near the starboard rail. He had turned fully toward the cliffs. Rain shone on his face. His lips moved as if he were answering someone. "Leo!" Saim roared. The boy smiled. Not joy, recognition. He took one step toward the rail. Ankistro moved before Orren understood he had chosen to. The captain crossed the deck low and fast, seized the back of Leo's coat with his bare hand, and flung him down. The boy struck the planks hard enough that his head bounced. "Bind him," Ankistro said. Two sailors moved at once, both shaking. They tied Leo's wrists to the ringbolt nearest the mast, while he wept and struggled toward the song. "No," Leo sobbed. "She's calling. She's calling me." "Everyone is called by something," Ankistro said. "Most have the grace not to answer in weather." The voices rose. Leo began to scream, not in pain, in longing. It slid under Orren's ribs and found his own longing waiting there. Evara below. Evara hurt. Evara with the door wedged open because closed doors had become teeth in her mind. Evara telling him not to hum because she did not want to be moved without choosing. Evara asking him to look where he put his feet. He had put them here. Why? Because the song had called. Because men had fallen. Because the ship might die. Because he could not bear a danger he did not see. Because beauty had always been something he trusted before thought. Because he wanted to know whether the voices knew him. That last truth shamed him. Ankistro shouted another order, but the wind tore it apart. The ship swung. No. The wheel did. Doven's arms strained against it, tendons standing in his neck. The unfinished oath tried to turn toward the cliffs. Orren felt it through the soles of his boots. The whole ship wanted. Ankistro struck Doven across the face with the back of his bare hand. Doven snarled, came back into himself, and hauled the wheel in the opposite direction. Ankistro threw his weight beside him. "South!" Ankistro shouted. "Pull her south!" Men scrambled. Some obeyed. Some tried. Some stood still. Faces lifted to rain and song. The voices opened into words. Orren could not understand the language. That did not matter. A song did not need words if it knew where to place the sound. These voices knew. They found tired men and promised shore, found lonely men and promised arms, found guilty men and promised that guilt could be set down if only they stepped where they were called, found hungry men and fed them with wanting. Then they found Orren again, not his hunger, his music. The note slid along his bones, touched the place where songs formed before breath, and answered him with a harmony he had never learned, but somehow knew how to enter. His hand lifted toward his throat. Syme cursed and slapped it down. "Boy, my name is Orren." "Then act like Orren and stay here." "I can answer it." "That is exactly what worries me." "No." Orren pushed away from the hatch, stumbling as the ship pitched. "Not answer like that." "I can." He stopped. He did not know what he could do. That had never stopped him before, which was not an argument in his favor. A sailor near the forward rail began to climb over. No one saw. Orren saw. The man moved carefully, almost politely, one leg over the rail, then the other. He was not thrown. He did not slip. He stepped down into the black air beyond the ship, as if descending a stair. The sea took him without drama. One moment body, next water. Orren screamed. His voice vanished under the storm. Another sailor turned toward the same rail. Orren did not think. He sang. The first note came out cracked by rain and fear. Too high, too thin. It would not have filled the low beam. It should have been useless against the storm. The cliffs, the choir pouring from the dark, but it was his. That mattered to the part of him that had been waiting to be asked. He sang Leo's name first, not because Leo mattered more than the others, because Leo was tied to the mast and still trying to crawl toward the rail, his cheek pressed to the deck, rain in his open mouth. "Leo," Orren sang, and the name found the boy's ear. Leo sobbed harder. Good. Crying lived in the body. Crying meant breath still belonged to him. Orren sang the deck next. Wet wood under boots. Rope burn. Cold fingers. Syme's cloves stink. Novan's blood, where Ankistro had struck his mouth. Ven's laugh too loud because silence frightened him. The lost crate. The barley. The fish-fat broth below deck. Mara's ladle striking a pot rim. A boy under a tavern table raising a spoon and claiming sleep. Small things, real things. Not the warm room the choir promised. Not arms without cost. Not forgiveness by drowning. Orren sang the splinters in a sailor's palm, and the taste of watered ale, and the ugly will of men who were not done being wet and miserable yet. The storm did not quiet. The choir did not stop. But 3 men on deck gasped, like they had come up from under water. Syme stared at him. "Keep doing that," he said. Orren had meant to answer. The next note tore his throat. He tasted blood. Syme heard the change. "Orren, work!" Ankistro shouted from the wheel. "If you can hear him, work!" Men moved. Not enough. Enough to live 1 more minute. Orren kept singing. He did not have verses. Verses belonged to taverns and courts, and boys who thought songs needed endings. He gave the crew what he could catch. Perrett, embarrassed over a lost crate. Perrett's hands on a knot. Perrett cursing under his breath because hunger tomorrow was better than drowning tonight. Then, up in the rigging, knife between his teeth, laughing whenever fear reached for him first. Doven at the wheel, blood on his lip, arms locked against water that wanted a different road. Syme, standing wide beside the hatch, one hand on the frame, the other on Orren's shoulder now, not holding him back, holding him there. Ankistro, Orren faltered. The captain stood half-turned at the wheel, rain streaming over his face. His gloved hand had come out from beneath his coat. The leather had torn. Something metal shone under it, curved, jointed. Wrong. Not a hook. Not only a hook. It moved with the captain's wrist, as if alive enough to resent being seen. A key, Orren thought stupidly, though he did not know why the word came. A talon. A silver-black piece of a beast, made into an answer. Ankistro caught him looking. The choir bent through that moment, and showed Orren a different shore. High grass, son, a young man turning, laughing, gold on his brow, then fire in salt dry air, a body falling, a woman by a river with one hand lifted, a ship named for what could not be finished. Orren staggered. That was not his memory. Ankistro's face went white with rage. Get out of my head, boy. I didn't. The captain shoved away from the wheel and crossed the deck. Too fast. Orren tried to back up, but Syme held him steady without meaning to. Ankistro seized Orren by the shoulder with the gloved hand. Pain exploded down Orren's arm. The metal had cut through sleeve and skin near his upper arm. Not deep enough to kill. Deep enough to open heat in the cold. Orren cried out. The song broke. The choir rushed in. Men turned. A rope fell. Doven's hands loosened on the wheel. The ship swung toward the cliffs. Ankistro's eyes widened. Not guilt. Calculation arriving too late to be dressed. He released Orren. Sing, he said. Orren clutched his arm. Blood ran hot between his fingers, then cold as rain thinned it. You cut me. Then you have proof you are alive. Use it. I can't. Ankistro struck him, open-handed, across the face, hard enough to bring fire to one eye. Syme lunged. Captain! Ankistro did not look at him. Orren killed, he said, every word cut clean through storm and song. Your woman is below us in a room with a window too small, and a door she asked to keep open. If you stop singing, every man needed to keep this ship above water will walk into the sea listening for his mother. So decide whether your pain is interesting enough to kill her. The words did what kindness could not. They found the room below. Ivara's bandaged hand. Ivara's eyes on the door. Ivara drinking broth, because hunger did not respect tragedy. Ivara telling him not to move her. Orren sang again, not with charm, not with beauty at first, with anger. He sang the slap on his face, the cut in his arm, the taste of blood, Ankistro's cruelty. Syme's hand still braced beside him. Dovan swearing at the wheel, Leo tied to the mast and still alive enough to hate the rope. Ivara below, not as a shining sun, not as rescue, not as the end of his loneliness. Ivara with mud under her nails. Ivara counting exits. Ivara saying, I don't want to be moved, without knowing I chose to move. The note steadied. Orren felt the danger at once. The crew leaned toward him now. Not the cliffs. Him. It would be easy. Too easy. He could gather them. Pull their breathing into his. Make the deck his room. Make the storm wait outside the walls of the song. Make men obey, not because they chose, but because his voice gave them a better place to put their fear. His blood ran warm down his sleeve. He nearly did it. Then Ivara's voice, from memory. Don't draw near it while I'm tired. He shifted the song. Not pull. Anchor. Names. Work. Pain. Orders. The rope in a man's hand. The sting of rain. The duty of boots to stay on wood. The ugliness of living. The men did not lean as much. They breathed. They worked. That was enough. Ankistro returned to the wheel. Doven had not fully gone. Not yet. Together they hauled the ship south by inches. The unfinished oath screamed under them, wood protesting the turn. A wave struck broadside and threw two sailors down. One slid toward the rail. Syme grabbed him by the back of the coat and slammed him into a coil of rope. You owe me a sleeve, Syme shouted. The sailor vomited on Syme's boot. I accept partial payment. Orren sang through the wretch that tried to rise in his own throat. The choir changed. For the first time, it sounded angry, not loud, not sharp, hurt. The voices opened wider, and inside them, Orren heard one voice more clearly than the others, a woman's. It did not call his name. That would have been simpler. It sang around it, sang the shape of him before he had a name, sang breath entering a child, sang hands giving up what they held, sang a warning too old to understand and too intimate to ignore. Orren forgot the deck. The woman's voice trembled through the rain. Come. No, not come. Listen. The difference mattered. He tried to follow the word through the harmony. Ankistro shouted, "Rocks!" The ship lurched. Orren snapped back. Lightning split the sky. For one white second, he saw everything. The cliffs close enough to show black weeds clinging to stone, white water bursting around a reef that should have been farther off. Then, halfway down the rigging, face turned not to the rocks, but to the caves. Leo tied to the mast with blood at his wrists from fighting rope. Same near the hatch. Ankistro at the wheel, mouth open in command. And beyond the rain, on a shelf of rock above the boiling water, wings, or the idea of wings, white, veined dark, opening and vanishing when thunder closed the world again. Orren's song failed for half a breath. The ship struck. Not a crash at first, a deep, impossible stop. The world kept moving. Orren's body did not. His teeth slammed together. The deck rose under him, then fell away. Men shouted. Wood screamed. Something heavy snapped overhead. The mast? No. A spar. Rope tore loose and whipped across the deck like a living thing. Same's hand left Orren's shoulder. The second impact came harder. The unfinished oath split sound from sense. Orren hit the deck on his wounded arm. Pain burst white. Water rushed over him. He swallowed salt and blood. Boots slid past his face. Someone fell across his legs and was gone before Orren could see who. Below deck, Evara. He tried to rise. The ship tilted. Everything not tied down began moving toward the sea. Orren clawed at the planks. His fingers found a seam. Slipped. Found rope. Rain blinded him. The choir still sang from the cliffs. But now the ship sang too. Broken wood, shrieking nails, men calling names no song could hold. "Evara!" His voice tore. He could not hear whither it carried. The deck dropped. For a breath, he was weightless. Then the world became water, wood, and dark.
Rain on the sill, salt in the flame. When the door goes quiet and the room lets go, lay the last word gently where the dark runs slow.
There is still a road under ash, under rain. There is still a voice trying not to break. Carry the song through the dark and the foam. Carry the name when the cold calls home. Leave one small